Hello, hello. How are you? Wishing you all a good day. Lots of crazy energies going around again, as usual. Um, so, I wanted to have a conversation that may be polarizing for some people, but I'd like to get it out in the open about a lot of the confusion. So, we talk about dating, we talk about sexuality and meeting others at a level of connection, relationship, etc. And there's a lot of polarization and frustration going on from both sides, women and men's sides. And over the last little while, I've had some beautiful conversations with women, just wondering what they want. I'm kind of at that middle-aged stage, and I was having some conversations with middle-aged women, and a lot of us have just got to the point of frustration, so we're giving up. We're just saying it's too much, too complicated. There's so much unsaid. There's so many frustrations. Men are this, women are that, blah, blah, blah. And I witnessed something, and I really want to bring it to the forefront. So several of the women that I talked about said that they had men in their lives and they were interested in going deeper with these men. And they were saying that the men were asking and very direct and upfront about what they wanted in their lives around sexuality. And the men, and I agree with this, it's kind of a normalized thing, but the men were saying they wanted to meet 2-3 times a week, specifically to have sexuality with a woman. And I thought it was beautiful. And even the woman commented and said, "Oh, this is beautiful that he's asking for what he wants." But she very flat out said how that's not what she was looking for. She wanted the man to spend time. She didn't actually say this, but spend time getting to know her, court her, go back to those old ways of connecting, and that sexuality wouldn't be shared until that was sorted out. Now, the difficulty, so I'm going to speak from the man's perspective, and the difficulty is we're at a state where sexuality is shamed and guilted a lot. And it's really clear and that polarities are shifted. There's a lot of over masculinization of women who have to kind of fight to get ahead and have a job and be single moms and all this kind of stuff. Fully understood. And in parallel with that, there's a very feminization of the men. So we're not ensuring where we fit. If there's a strong masculine here that happens to be a woman, we're meeting the other half of the yang. So if they're 60% masculine, we're coming in at 40% masculine and more feminine. So it creates this miscommunication first. So we're coming in the surrendered state, and the woman is in more of the dominant state, but she's frustrated by being in the dominant state. So she's trying to have some control, which is the natural masculine state. There's no blame at all. I'm just wanting awareness to get. So it's like, okay, here's the rules. And if you don't follow the rules, it doesn't align with me. So I'll just not participate if that doesn't happen. So men are meeting that. How do you respond to that? It's like, okay, I want to be upfront and I want to be really crystal clear about what my needs are. So I'm going to state these things. And then at the same time, that's like men are being too sexual. They're being too direct. They're being all this stuff. And then it's makes them feel uncomfortable. That's the societal state. But I'm going to explain the man's side a little bit. So a man is going into a relationship with a woman, especially once they've come to middle age. There's maybe a divorce that's happened or past relationships. And men have their own wounds like women, opposite to what women have. So there's a lot of things that are unsaid in meeting and connecting at a relationship level. And when sexuality comes in, there's a bunch of other unsaid things that are happening, like assumptions of commitment and monogamy and all these things that aren't actually even discussed early on, but it's just an expectation. And then we get into this craziness where we're trying to see, from a man's perspective, we're trying to see if we're compatible with this woman. And compatibility early on is sexually compatible. Like, do they meet what I need from that perspective? Because a lot of times we come out from sexless marriages or past relationships or long time dating where we never even got to the point where we could ask about or directly communicate about our sexuality. So there's these things that are unsaid that go with it that I'll explain it as a man. It basically constricts us and constrains us. And here now we're making this commitment so we can share sexuality, but we aren't being really communicative, and the woman's not being communicative either. It's nobody's fault. And a bunch of expectations show up. And without these expectations being discussed, it can be very scary for a man. From my perspective, it's like, okay, what am I committing to? What are the expectations here? There's a whole bunch of stuff that's unsaid and a whole bunch of wounds for both of us that haven't been discussed, that we're trying to assess in this indirect way whether this person is going to be like our ex or our past. And we don't know how to line up, how to have that discussion to vulnerably say, hey, I, as a man, a lot of men are in lack of sexuality. We're shamed for our sexuality a lot of times. Women, my understanding is they get offered this all the time. They can have it whenever they want, but that doesn't feel good to them. So then they're frustrated. So there's like this, I don't know, feast or famine kind of thing going on both sides, where really both just want to be met. They both want to have a really clear view of what the desires of the other person is. Now, men are expected to kind of read a woman's energy, and that in a naturally masculine state, it happens. But I'm going to make some suggestions based on my experience. Women have not always been direct about what they want. There's this programming or this past that says women need to play hard to get, and they want to be chased. And it confuses our men's radar. I'm going to explain this. So when you have a woman that's attracted to you and getting sexually aroused by you, we can feel this as a man. But when you go up to a woman and she'll look you straight dead in the eyes, and she's learned to look into the eyes and then say, no, I'm really not interested in you. And they're really direct about it, and they're really clear. There's a lot of energy. We pull back. It's like, okay, did I misread this? And I'm going to tell you right now, there's a shame and guilt going on there. There's a bunch of stuff from societal conditioning that's going to say, I don't want to be too forward. I don't want to be too direct. Don't want to tell him that I'm interested until I'm clear he's safe. Okay, great. So essentially we get into this situation where we can't trust our radar anymore. We got into trouble sometimes. We even have situations where we'll go into relationship with someone or into sexuality with someone, and there'll be a yes during the act, but the next day shame and guilt will show up, and then we'll be accused of something that we didn't do, and we're lost. So we're really confused. We need these things into our life, which women want as well, but it's scary sometimes to be able to walk into this, and all of a sudden it's like the shame and guilt showed up, or societal judgment, or what will my friends think will show up because somebody will have done something. And then it's like, oh, I didn't do that. Well, it happened. I can't change that it happened. I just need to be able to feel comfortable to move forward. So we're in this kind of push-pull craziness where nobody's really talking about the truth. Nobody's talking about their shames and guilts and discomforts or whatever. We could work through these in minutes, but instead we just kind of say, okay, well, that didn't happen, or I'm not comfortable with that, or whatever. And I'm going to also explain. So women also talk about men walk away after first sexuality or whatever, like we're kind of putting notches on our belt or something. Well, men and women are trying to assess the same things. We're trying to see if this person is sexually compatible and whether or not I'm ready to make this really deep commitment that sexuality is, but I don't want to get what I'll call trapped, and we can decompose this, but trapped is, okay, I've made this and we're now into sexuality. We're into this stage of the escalator where sexuality now means we're getting a relationship, or we're moving in together, or we're getting engaged, or whatever. A lot of times without any discussion, it's just like, okay, this is the obligation. So we get in this like, I need to have sexuality. I've got a lack, or I've got a need, and I'm asking for my needs to be met by direct communication. And then we get to that point, and then sometimes there's like it feels like a trap. It's like, okay, we've now had it. Now there's a bunch of expectations. You got to call me all the time. You got to send me text messages. You got to meet me. You got to honor me, and all this kind of stuff. But that wasn't discussed before we even got to that point. So we don't know how we're not meeting the woman. And we don't know what they need. We just know that because we didn't do it, we're in the shithouse. And we really, really, really need the women's courage at this point to be able to say what I haven't read. I haven't been trained, or I don't even have the knowledge to read what that energy is that I'm feeling, and that I haven't met in some way, but eventually it becomes like a whipped puppy. It's like, okay, this has happened more and more times in my past, and I can't seem to do anything right. I have these needs and these desires, and I want to meet a woman, but I need a woman to meet me in that powerful place of telling me what she desires. And don't assume I automatically know it, because I'll go to hell and back for a woman that's clear and communicative and wants this to work, but isn't expecting to be disappointed every time, because that's really what dating and other things have turned around into, is we're not comfortable enough being vulnerable and sharing what's going on. But it's so much easier to hide in our wounds. Both of us, men and women, are both doing it. It's like, oh, I'm scared by this didn't feel good, so I'm going to run away. And then it doesn't continue. People ghost each other and all this kind of stuff, when really it was like, I look at it this way. The first sexuality is probably the worst sexuality you're ever going to have with a partner. It really takes, like, by the third time before you're starting to know their body, you're starting to understand things, you're firmly committed into what's going on. That first one is like a tentative meet in the middle, the battlefield, and shake hands and see if whatever all the judgments that we have are met, or is their body good enough, or how did they give me pleasure, or whatever. It's all a game. It's all demented, when really we just have to see that other person as just as vulnerable as us, and just as scared, and say, I'm scared to ask for this, but this is the sexuality I want, and this is how I'd love to see it be, and set some ground rules, or a little bit of awareness up front, and then have an agreement that afterwards everybody comes in and has a discussion the next day. Nobody runs away, or this wasn't okay, and talk about what was good, what was bad, how this would be. It might be a little bit scary, but the minute we have that level of engagement with each other, we're going to be able to heal. We're going to be able to look at it and say, oh, that was messy and that felt uncomfortable, and this kind of stuff. And if we know where we're going with it, it's like, okay, we're doing a trial and seeing if this is something we want to do more of. But a lot of times I'm seeing women don't want to find that part out. They want to get that person or that man prove that they're not like their past man, or the past relationship they had, or whatever, but it's unstated. So we get judged too at the end of that sexuality. It's like, okay, ghosting, breakup, we're done, or whatever, or full on attachment sometimes, like, okay, now I've got somebody that I can trust, without really discussing what the desires are, what the needs are. And if we can sit in that place and say, okay, I'm a sexual being, I'm exploring sexuality, I need the go to movies, go to supper, have a massage, I need all that kind of stuff as well. I'll agree to that any moment. This is building sensuality, this is building whatever. But a lot of times I don't know what you want, because I'm just knowing you, I'm just getting to that connection level. So share it. Give me the awareness of what you want. What's important to you? Do you want to be wined and dined? Do you want to be romanced? Do you want me to be more dominant? Do you want me to be more whatever? But if you can be honest about what you want, I can be anything to a woman in a lot of ways. And when I'm over feminized because the woman's more dominant or masculine, I really want to step into that stage, but to step into that stage, to be more dominant, to get her to surrender, to make her feel this beautiful opening in her body, I got to be able to trust her first. And if we don't have trust on both sides and we can't acknowledge that we're both wounded, we're both scared, and talk about it. The last time that my boyfriend grabbed me by the scruff of the neck, it made me back to my rape trauma or something like that. Well, how can I be dominant and step into that, read your energy, because I'm already confused about energy when I'm dealing with a trauma? That will blow up in my face and I'll be just like, oh, either she's crying or screaming or saying I raped her the next day, which nobody wants to have. It's, if we're going into something like that, I can respond to what I know. I can feel the energy of what's going on. A lot of times we're confused as hell. It's like, okay, where'd this energy come from? Now she's sad and whatever. And then put in body cycles and periods and other stuff. A person or a woman can be in completely three different states at any state of the month. Some is very passive and gentle, and some are very masculine and whatever. I can't read that yet because I haven't got a good calibration. A lot of times we came from a relationship and marriage that I was off, or in my marriage, it was like shame and guilt. There's something wrong with my body. I'm too fat, all this kind of stuff to hide a trauma that she had. So I'm recalibrating. I'm looking for a woman that I can trust to recalibrate with, and I can be open and vulnerable with. But if being open and vulnerable makes you feel uncomfortable or whatever, I have to know that up front. If you don't want me to go that way, I can't read all this stuff at the same time of being in shame and guilt from societal conditioning, lack because my body needs that touch and other things. And a lot of men are going 1 year, 2 year, 3 years with no touch with some of the virus stuff that's going on in the world. And they're kind of lost, and they're just looking for an opportunity to get back and connected and to intimacy. And I'm not talking about sex right now, but having somebody that's okay with touching you, giving a hug, having a cuddle, all these kind of things. Those are going to calm my nervous system down. They'll hopefully calm your nervous system down as well. And then we can have a nice conversation about, okay, well, I want more touch. I'd love to give you a massage. I'd love to see how that feels for your body, or those kind of things. But a lot of times, anything that's more than just platonic touch can be judged as too sexual or over sexual. So tell me what you want, and I'll meet the world for you. If I can't meet it, I'll state that back. But if I don't know what you want and I miss doing what you want, and now I'm in the doghouse for not doing those things, we can't engage. So all I ask, I'll show up as masculine and fun as you want, and I'm willing to step into those, but they're all brand new for me right now. And I might make some mistakes, and I might need a little bit of feedback, and I might need you to nudge me once in a while. I will step into something that I haven't stepped into in my entire life from a masculine perspective, and I will meet you wherever you declare you need to be met. But if you expect me to find you in a place that I've never been, there's no map. I'll get there eventually, but don't say that we're missing the boat and where have all the good men gone, or these kind of things, because the good men are in training. The good men are trying to step up, trying to find a way to safely engage and meet your needs and meet my needs. But all we can do as men is state what our needs are. Hey, I need sexuality, and it's something I haven't had a lot in my life, and I'd love to have it 3 times a week. Is that okay with you? But if you respond and say, oh, that's awful, or why is he engaging? That's all we know how, is to state what we want. The men want to engage a woman. They want to wine and dine. They want to take for a dance. They want to make her feel safe to surrender. But when there's a warrior of a masculine inside of them at the door, and our masculine is just getting comfortable with it, sometimes it feels like a battle and we don't know what to do. But we want to engage. We want to be with the feminine. We want to worship and we want to have fun and all this kind of stuff. But give us permission. Invite us in. Say, hey, I'd like to have you come in and let's experience this. And I'll be like, hey, well, I'd love to do that too. Can I trust you that your yeses and nos are okay? Can we explore that as we go? Because if you say yes, but you really meant a no, I'm in trouble, because I might afterwards end up in a situation where I did something that now is a no, but was a yes in the moment. And women get turned off sometimes by men asking permission. Hey, I'd love to kiss you. Hey, I'd love to touch your arm or touch you more sexually. So we're having to step back and honor and accept that confusion sometimes, which is all okay. We're both learning. Both sides are learning. And then something magic can happen, because now it's like, oh, he asked. Felt a little icky at the beginning, but he's asking. Do you know how few women have ever been asked if a partner could penetrate them or enter them? This can make a woman in tears for the first time in her life, because they've never felt they had the choice. So what happens is this overprotection to guard the gates, when really the gates just needed a man that would respect the gates and would make that a powerful, amazing thing, not this taking of a woman or unloading our karma or thoughts. No, we want to honor and respect our divine union, our divine half of yin and yang. And this isn't happening because all these prejudgments and all this armor is going up. So just know men are doing their best, and they want to see the flower open of the woman in their sovereignty, in their independence, and asking for what they want. But we want to have a choice in what we want as well. It seems sometimes that it's always the woman's choice, and women will say, I'm sure that, they've been abused and hurt many, many times in their past. And I agree. And it's not okay. But there's a lot of men out here that are willing to go the extra mile to change that, to build trust, to shift things. We don't want to feel obligated to things we haven't even discussed yet. We don't want to have to feel trapped or attached to when it hasn't been discussed. And really, that's all we're asking for. Let's have a discussion on it. It's like, hey, I don't want to jump into marriage right now. I just had a divorce and I don't want these things, but how can we meet in the middle where we have passion and excitement and we honor each other and build this kind of place where you can build trust, and then you can meet at different levels. Be really clear about what you want in your sexuality and how you need to be kind of built to the point where you feel safe enough to do that. And men will do it. If they don't agree with it, they're going to come back and give you some feedback, but it's got to be on both sides. So I'm just asking to invite us in, to be really clear about what you want. And if we're showing up with, this is what I need of sexuality in a certain period or whatever, and if that feels icky to you or discomfortable, then say it and say, hey, I want to build this, and here's the path to build that, and here we'll have a discussion on it or whatever. And a man's going to feel so much better, because a lot of times that decision is behind this checklist that we don't even know what it is. And it's okay. We love that everybody's got concerns and past armor and all this kind of stuff. But if you can show us what we're trying to, instead of asking about our grandparents and having all these long conversations about stuff that doesn't seem to matter just to test us, come out and ask, well, what do you believe? Are you a man that's in his integrity? Are you a man that I can trust? Well, what does trust feel like to you? And how would you do that? What are my moral codes to meet you at? And that shouldn't be something that I'm scared about. That's something that's an integral part of me. A man that's healed himself knows what those things are. And it's like, I just don't jump into bed with anyone. But when I'm in a lax state, I'm uncomfortable because my needs aren't being met. I don't have trust or touch, and I'm kind of lost. And this world has created this. It's separated us all and locked us in our homes and all this kind of stuff. So there's a state where men are ready to engage. They just have to feel trust and confidence and setting out a little bit of what expectations are and that kind of stuff. One I really like is nothing is implied until it's said and accepted. If we could move our sexuality to that, our relationships to that, and not put anything that hasn't been on the table or as an expectation, it's going to make us feel a lot safer. And it's going to probably make you feel a lot safer too, because your needs and your desires will get met much easier once they've been said. So I hope this helps. I'm not trying to blame anyone. I'm just trying to speak from the man's perspective. And it's a really lonely place sometimes to chase this stuff, try and date, where all these things are unsaid, and it feels really uncomfortable and messy. So hopefully you can hear that perspective. If you disagree, great. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just trying to speak from my experience. There's lots of other men that are going to have different experiences, but I'm a heart-centered, vulnerable man that's trying his best to meet women at levels that magic can start to happen. Our unions can begin. So I hope this helps. It's not easy saying these things, and it's not easy to stay out of my wounds. And I've been hurt more times than I can count, but this is what I desire. This is what I've seen. This is what my perspective was. If it's not correct, I'd love for women to speak up and speak vulnerably and state what they're feeling. And then men can see that, and then we can alter and shift our focus and shift our perspective so that we can find a place to meet in the middle. And once that place to meet in the middle comes, we build people around it, community around it, and amazing things. We share this with others, and then we unbreak all this dating and all this relationship turmoil and all the bullshit that's going on, and we start to shine, and we have a loving, beautiful life together. So thank you for listening. Thank you for hearing me, and I look forward to hearing another perspective. A feminine perspective would be beautiful. But men, fill in down below as well. So thank you for listening, and I love you all. Have a great day. Whew, this was intense. Talk to you soon.